Am I on? Am I doing okay? Okay, great. Well, I'm excited tonight because I get to give this presentation. When Thomas was looking at doing the sabbatical, and he said, I'm going to be out for a little bit, so he starts calling in subs, right, like we've all been seeing. And I said, well, can I give this presentation that I usually give to my students when I teach at A&M? For those of y'all that don't know me, I teach at A&M. More on me here, about me here in a second. But I give this presentation at the end of the semester. It's an optional class, and I tell my students in the very beginning of the semester, I say, look, I am a Christian, and these are the things that I think construction says that really point to a creator, that really point to God. And if you want to hear me talk more in detail about this, come to my optional class on the last day of the semester, and that's what you guys are getting ready to see right now. So this is what my students show up to see. Now, I have adapted a little bit because I think y'all are going to expect a little bit more of me than the students in my classes. But with that being said, can we get the presentation pulled up? Great. So I feel myself kind of going into teacher mode. I'm a lot more relaxed right now than I would be during a normal sermon. So I hope that's playing in well. But this is the presentation. It's called MEP Systems as Evidence for God. And good. Okay, stuff is working. So here's a quick agenda, y'all. I got some scripture assignments that I'm going to give everybody, okay? So I'm going to need some volunteers here in a second to mark some places in scripture, and you're going to have to read out loud, so full disclosure on what's expected there. But we'll do that here in a second. I'll talk a little bit about me. We'll talk about uncontrolled MEP, and I'll tell you what MEP stands for here in a second. Uncontrolled MEP versus controlled MEP. We're going to look at two case studies. There's going to be a building called the Edge, and then there's going to be a case study of your human body. And then we're going to do a comparison, and then we'll wrap it with conclusions there. So that is our agenda for tonight. Okay, so scripture. Who are my volunteers? Okay, Cooper Tuggle, your hand was first. Psalm 19, 1 through 4. Michael, I saw yours too. Michael Baber, you're Romans 8, 22. Matt. Good, okay, I'm glad I didn't guess. Matt, thank you for reminding me. Psalm 139, 13 through 14. Jackson, you're going to be the next one. Romans 1, 18 through 19. And then finally, one more. Tyler, Romans 1, 20 through 21. Okay, so mark those. I'm going to need y'all to read those out loud during the presentation here. So I'm trying to make this a little interactive. This is kind of like how I do my classes. So, man, I'm really in the mode right now. This is great. Okay, about me. My name is Jonathan Houston. For those of y'all who may not know me, I'm a class of 2006, Whoop, from Texas A&M. I'm a professional engineer and a lead accredited professional, which means I took a test and I know some things about sustainable construction. So there. I'm a mechanical/electrical engineer. I have a specialty in MEP systems. Okay, so what is MEP? It stands for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. If you have ever punched a thermostat, turned on a light, or flushed a toilet, you've used all three of those. All right, so that's MEP systems. I'm a licensed journeyman electrician. I have a small business called Solid Ground Electrical. I'm a senior lecturer at Texas A&M in Construction Science Department. I've been following Jesus for about 25 years. By the way, I'll go into this in a little bit more detail, but I don't get in trouble for doing this at A&M, and I'll explain why here in a second. If some of y'all are wondering, how are you getting away with this? Aren't they going to fire you for talking about your faith in an academic institution? No, I'll explain. Okay, so I wanted to start with this. This is a little bit of the bonus content that I put together for you guys, and this is a very simplified model of apologetic steps, right? So I think it's helpful to kind of figure out where people are and what they think and believe about God, so that you can kind of zone in on how to spend your time with them and what subjects to bring up. So if somebody starts out at atheism right here, which is, somebody define atheism for me. What is that? God does not exist. There is no God. So if somebody says atheism, then the next step up, kind of logically, in the apologetics framework, is that they would make the step up to deism, which says what?
God exists.
There is a God, but what? What's that? Not involved, right? Absentee God. So deism is like God's out there, kind of spun the universe into motion, and then hands off, right? So that's deism. Well, to get from atheism to deism, then typically what's called the teleological argument is the way to go, all right? And that, there's a smiley face right here, because this is where we're going to spend pretty much all of our time, all right? So we're not going to get all the way up to the God of the Bible. I'll kind of scratch the surface on that a little bit, but That's how you get from atheism to deism. The next step up would be to theism. Who can tell me about theism? There is a personal God, right? So it's a step above deism because now it's not just God just kind of shoved the universe out there and let go. He's actually personal, but the three monotheistic faiths kind of all fall into this theistic bucket. Okay, so Judaism, Islam, and Christianity are kind of your options if you believe in a theistic God. And the way that you get from deism, absentee God, to theism is typically with the moral argument, right? Which is if morals exist, then there has to be a God that is the source of those objective moral values, all right? I purposely didn't define teleological argument. We'll get there in a second. And then to get from theism up to the God of the Bible, really to narrow it down and eliminate the Islamic God, Allah, and kind of get to the fulfillment of Yahweh that the Jews, worship. The New Testament reliability is really the big thing that gets from that theism step up to the God of the Bible. So back to teleological argument. What is meant by teleological? Anybody want to take a stab at what that big word means?
The purpose of something.
Except Houston. No, that's great. So say that one more time, Houston.
The purpose or direction of something.
Okay, so purpose, direction. Others might define it too, kind of along the same lines as like an argument from design, right? Like if I see a car, I automatically infer that doesn't just happen by natural causes, right? So that's teleological basically means there is design in the world and in the universe, and that means that this universe can't just be here without a God. There had to be at least a deistic God in order to get that going, all right? So that's kind of the simplified steps right there. Okay, so here is where I'm going to talk about how I don't really get in trouble for doing this in a classroom setting. And I want to see hands in the air. Who has an Aggie ring? Oh, a bunch of y'all. Okay, momentarily, I want y'all to take that Aggie ring off. And I want you to hold it up so that you can clearly see the shield on the front of it. And on that shield, you should be able to, don't show me, Tyler. I want you to look at it. Right? On that shield, you should see 5 stars in a horizontal line. Okay, now those 5 stars are symbolic of things. And I'm not making this up. You can go look on the Aggie Ring website and check this out. The first 4 stand for all 5 of them stand for pillars of the A&M education. So every Aggie should leave A&M when they graduate with these 5 things. The first 4 are education of the mind, education of the body, emotional poise, integrity of character, and does anybody want to guess what the 5th star represents as far as the pillar of an A&M education? Say that again? Yes, it is spiritual attainment. Points for Letty in the back for nailing that one. All right? So, the Aggie ring symbolizes that every A&M student should be getting these 5 things as part of their education. Now, I think at Texas A&M, we do a really good job of educating the mind. We do a really good job at educating the body. We do an okay job at integrity of character and emotional poise. But I think we do a terrible job of educating for spiritual attainment. And so I'm just here to fill in the gap that the Aggie ring says is there. So A&M is basically giving me a platform to stand on and talk about these things. And I'm not forcing anybody to believe anything. I think that's where I could, maybe start to get into trouble. But I'm just putting it out there. And if, students want to come, they can. If they want to agree with me, they can. If they want to disagree, they can. It's great. But anyway, I'm totally in the clear to be talking about this at A&M, and I love it. This is my favorite day of the semester. So let's get into uncontrolled MEP. All right, so again, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. I have a sad face up there because uncontrolled mechanical, electrical, and plumbing out there in the world is usually very destructive, very bad. So, Cooper, are you my Psalm 19 guy?
Yes.
You can go ahead now.
The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world.
Okay, thank you, Cooper. So I purposely juxtaposed this here because right now, yes, the creation is glorious, but there are that obviously does not mean that God is not glorified by his creation. However, his creation, right, as glorious as it is doing something that Romans 8:22 talks about. Who had that one? Michael, go ahead.
We know that the whole creation groans and labors with birth pangs together until now.
Okay, so the whole creation is what?
Groaning.
It's groaning. And why is it groaning? Sorry, one more time?
Because of sin.
Because of sin, right? So creation, of course, was perfect before sin, and that sin allowed the destructive nature of things, the groaning of creation to begin. So here we have 3 examples. This one is a plumbing example. So this is a flood. That is uncontrolled plumbing, very destructive. Property gets damaged. Lives get lost sometimes, unfortunately. That is uncontrolled MEP. This right here, this is a mechanical example. So in mechanical systems, right now you're sitting in a building that is temperature controlled, right? So when we say mechanical systems, we're talking about something that controls the temperature of a space in a building. And this is obviously uncontrolled thermal energy in a forest fire, right? Bad. Destructive. We don't like that kind of stuff. And then obviously we have the lightning strike, and as cool of a picture as that is, there's also the reality that lightning destroys things, right? It sets things on fire, causes huge amounts of damage to buildings and people every year. So those are uncontrolled MEP systems. Now, here are some examples of controlled MEP systems. So MEP is really cool because it can be harnessed to do things that are very useful. Who here likes to drink Coca-Cola? Okay, y'all want to admit it, great. So, Coca-Cola. This right here is a Coca-Cola factory in Mannheim, Germany. This machinery right here is a special machine that takes an empty Coke bottle, washes it, fills it with your favorite drink, and puts a bottle cap on it, sealing it, and gets it ready to ship out into crates, right? So it's a sophisticated piece of machinery. And you can kind of imagine, I'm going to show you a video of how this works in a second because it's cool. But anyway, you can kind of imagine the assembly line here. Anybody know what this is right here? That's another example of controlled MEP systems. Any biology majors in here? Bacteria is a good guess. This is going on inside of bacteria.
Of the body.
You're above my head, Trey. Okay, I have a little bit of terminology on this, but you can correct me later if I'm wrong. But can you talk about that in layman's terms? What does it translate that?
Unwinding the DNA.
Yes, okay. So this is the process of unwinding the DNA. So right here, upper right-hand corner, you see this right here. This is a DNA, double helix. It is being pushed downward into this big bundle right here. This bundle is basically a big bundle of proteins that is unzipping that DNA. And you can see one half of it coming out here and being replicated into a new strand, and the other half of it is coming out here and also being replicated into a new strand. I'm going to show you a video of this too, really a computer animation to show you how cool that is. Basically what I'm trying to illustrate here is you have one manufacturing process over here that represents harnessed MEP systems, and you have another manufacturing process right here that is going on in your body all the time that is also harnessing the power of MEP systems. So these are the places where these systems are housed. This is the Coca-Cola factory in Mannheim, Germany, where you just saw that machine. And this is the place where that DNA replication is happening all the time. In fact, in the time that I've been talking to you about DNA replication, it has literally happened inside your body millions of times. Millions of times. Your cells are doing this all the time. It's amazing. Now, here's the Coke factory one. So Marcus, can you hit play on that one and everybody can see about a 1-minute video on how this Coke factory works. Go ahead. Okay, thank you, Marcus. So in that video, how many bottles got broken? Not a trick question. 0. How many bottles overflowed? Did y'all see the liquid going in? You could see the Coke going in? How many bottles overflowed? 0. How many bottles fell off the track? 0. Highly sophisticated, highly controlled MEP process to produce a very simple yet satisfying result of bottled Coca-Cola. Okay, so now this is a video, and Marcus, this is where I want you to go to the 2.5-minute mark, and we'll just play about 50 seconds of this. Watch this manufacturing process, computer animation of your DNA being replicated in your cells. So right here, this is your DNA going in. Marcus, pause it right here. I want to, Trey, you can correct me later on this, but look, this is the DNA strand going in. This right here, I just want to point this out because this is amazing. That blue guy right there is a special enzyme called helicase. Helicase gets its name from the helix structure of DNA, and it is spinning in a circle because your DNA is in a spiral, right? And it's going to have to unzip in that spiral fashion. Anybody want to take a guess at how fast that helicase enzyme is spinning? Yeah, it's spinning as fast as a jet engine. That's happening in your cells right now. Right now. Not just once, but you have, I don't know, depending on who you talk to in the estimates, you have trillions of cells, somewhere between 3 and 10 trillion cells. That's going on inside your body right now. Jet engine ripping your DNA apart so it can be split into 2, and all these little machines are continuing to work on. So Marcus, hit it again, please, if you can hit play. And we'll kind of watch a few iterations of this. But you can see one copy of the strand coming out right here. This is a forward strand right here. For those of y'all that don't know, don't worry about it. But your DNA is forward on one side and backwards on the other, so it has to copy it forward on one side and then kind of loop it around on the other side. But look at the machinery there, right? You have this kind of repetitive process, this mechanized system that is copying the thing that makes your body run. If this process goes wrong, you can die. You can have deformities. You can get cancer. This process is incredibly sophisticated. So the point there is that 2 manufacturing processes, thanks Marcus, that's good right there. 2 manufacturing processes, one of them puts bottles of Coke on the line, and the other is the thing that makes you function as a human being. So really amazing. Oh, who's got Psalm 139, 13 through 14? Go ahead, Matt.
For you formed my inward parts. You wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well.
Yes, so even though creation is groaning under the weight and the corruption of sin, there are still things going on here that can point us to the Creator. So, let's do a couple of case studies. So I told you we do a case study on a building and one on the human body. This case study is on a building called The Edge. All right, and here's a little bit of specs on this building called The Edge. So this building was built back in 2015. At the time, it was the most sustainable, most green building that had ever been built on the planet. And if you Google this, depending on which list of sustainable buildings you look at, this is still in the top 10 or top 20, even though it's 10 years old. So they went to town on this thing, making it as green and sustainable as they possibly could. I'm going to highlight a couple things here. The design documents, in other words, the drawings and the written specifications to build this building was roughly 4,000 pages of drawing documents and 10,000 pages of specifications, right? And so there you go. That's just a lot of information in order to build this building. Like I said a minute ago, it was completed in 2015. And of course, it has an owner and an architect that designed the building. It had an MEP engineer, because there's lots of sophisticated MEP systems that we'll talk about here in a second that are there, and had a builder. So let's look at some of the MEP highlights. I'm going to start with the mechanical systems, because the Edge is not like any building that you've ever seen mechanical-wise. It is so sophisticated that it's crazy. Right here, this is a picture showing the Edge right here, and then below ground level, there are pipes with huge pumps that are pumping warm water up from below the ground, like I'm talking like 400 feet underground in the wintertime, to provide heating for this building, right? Very, very sophisticated, but also very sustainable. And then in the summertime, it pumps cold water up from this aquifer so that it can use as little energy from the grid as possible to keep this building comfortable for everybody. It also has these, this right here is a picture of this, instead of like ceiling vents like we have right here, like this guy, there's cool air coming out of there right here. The Edge does not have that. It has these things, and this water that comes from underground eventually gets piped, and these little tubes are so small you can barely see them in this picture, but they're like little soda straws zipping back and forth right here, and they are allowing that cool water, or warm water, depending on the season, to run through there and keep that building comfortable. Isn't this just nuts? Like, that is really, really sophisticated. Let's talk about some electrical highlights for the Edge. So electrically, the Edge is a rare building because it produces more electricity than it actually consumes. Noted by this 102% production. So the way that they do that is they have 65,000 square feet of solar panels on this building. 65,000. Some of those are on the roof, but a lot of them are integrated into the windows of the building, so that the skin of this entire thing is basically producing solar or electricity from solar power all day and all, well, not all night, but all the time that the daylight's out. It has a very efficient lighting system, and it has the ability to automatically brighten and dim lights. It's got charging stations for anything you can imagine. They really went all out on this one, and that's some highlights of the electrical systems here at the Edge. For plumbing, this one the Edge has a plumbing system with a feature that is very unique. It doesn't happen in buildings very often, and that's a rainwater harvesting system. Now, a lot of the buildings that you drive by, you might see these tanks. They have rainwater harvesting, and a lot of times the buildings around here will use it for irrigation. The Edge took it a step farther, and they also use that captured water for toilet flushing. And you might not think about it, but that requires a whole separate piping system and a control system to be able to keep water streams separate so that they don't get mixed up. So the Edge is very sophisticated in terms of its plumbing. Now, what really kind of takes this to another level with the Edge is it has a sensing and monitoring system in order to control all these MEP systems. So in your house, you probably have an air conditioning system, you have lights and plugs and all that kind of stuff, electrical system, you got your toilets, but none of those systems talk to each other in your house, more than likely. Unless you are into like home automation and stuff, and maybe you've gotten those things to work together a little bit more than usual. Commercial buildings don't even have that most of the time. Their systems are usually kind of separate, but the Edge has integrated all of that with a sensor and monitoring system that has 28,000 sensors all over this building. They are sensing everything from the normal stuff like temperature, relative humidity, motion, lighting levels. They're also sensing cleaning needs, and all the way down to, they're sensing toilet paper levels, y'all. Yeah, toilet paper levels. But this is meant to help them minimize their maintenance effort, because now if they know that the toilet paper is full in a restroom, they don't send a janitor in there to change anything. They leave it. So it helps them kind of be efficient with that. All of this information, so it's another thing to have all this information, but it's another thing to integrate it all together and make it available to the users of the building. So anybody that works there has this app. They can pull up all these charts and graphs on their phone and see how much energy is the Edge building using right now. What is the lighting level like in my area of the building? This thing even has the ability to recognize you when you walk in the building and make a coffee maker start making the coffee that you like, right? This is so highly integrated. This is very, very unique. And this dashboard, again, kind of puts it all together. DDC stands for Direct Digital Controls. That's just a fancy MEP term that means the building basically has a brain that all of this stuff feeds into, and that brain is able to control things that I was just talking about. Okay, so that concludes our case study of the Edge. Really sophisticated building. Now let's jump into a case study of the human body. All right, this is where it gets awesome. So, your body must regulate its temperature. It must. If you get too cold, what happens to your body? You get hypothermia, and you can die. If your body heats up too much, your brain stops being able to process glucose correctly, and you die. Right? Your body must operate within a very narrow band of temperatures in order to stay alive. And that mechanical system is composed mostly of your blood vessels, your heart, and to some extent your lungs, but also it includes things like your skin, and you can probably imagine as you kind of look at this list here. I'm not going to go through all of these because that would take a while, but I'll highlight a couple of them here. You have a hypothalamus, right? That's basically the thermostat for your whole body. Now, your thermostat at your house, how many locations in your house is that thermostat monitoring? One. It's only measuring the temperature exactly where the thermostat is. Maybe if you have a remote sensor tied into yours, it's doing one or two more, but on a basic level, a thermostat is only monitoring one location. Your hypothalamus is monitoring your entire body. Your internal organs have little temperature sensors all over them. Your skin has temperature sensors all over them, and that helps so that when you get hot, like we're in summer right now, you start sweating when it gets hot outside. And we don't like it, but we frequently don't appreciate how cool of a phenomenon that is. You don't have to tell your body to sweat, it just does it, right? Releases water, and that water evaporates, and when it evaporates, it takes the heat with it, so that as we're complaining about sweating, our body is cooling us off. It is amazing, right? Your arteries have the ability to automatically relax or contract in order to let more heat get to your skin or less heat. So if you're cold, it's going to hold on to that heat more. If you're hot, it's going to expand and let that heat get out to your skin easier. And all of that has to happening without you even thinking about it. You do not have to say, Simon, you don't have to tell your arteries, please expand right now. Please release some of this heat that I don't want. You don't do that because your body's doing it automatically. And I'm going to skip down here. Thermogenesis. So thermogenesis is a fancy word for shivering, right? You get cold, you start shivering. Thermo is, heat. Genesis is to create or make. Shivering makes heat, right? Your body, if you're older than about, a year old, shivers visibly if you want to make heat. Babies, however, they have what's called non-shivering thermogenesis. And some of you medical people can correct me on this, but it's called brown fat, right? Okay, I'm getting a head nod from Trey. That's encouraging. Brown fat. Okay, so everybody that's about a year old or less has brown fat in a much higher concentration. That brown fat basically generates heat for that baby. And that is very important because babies have a smaller volume to surface area ratio, and so they don't hold on to heat as well. So their body has this mechanism in it that generates heat automatically without them even thinking about it. But that brown fat kind of decreases over time. So, at my age, you don't really have a whole lot of brown fat left. Senior citizen age, you don't have a lot of brown fat left, so we shiver visibly. So really cool. And on top of that, this system grows with you. It grows with you. Can you imagine if you had a house and you had an air conditioning? I'm so excited, I'm like stumbling over my words, right? If you had a house and you had an air conditioning system in that house, and that house would grow as you had babies. That would be awesome. People would pay a lot of money for a house like that, right? And that mechanical system would grow with it. Oh, and what if this happened? What if your house, when your air conditioning system broke, had the ability to self-repair? Yours can self-repair to some extent. A building's can't. It's amazing. And yours operates 24/7, 365 for 75 and maybe more years. Your mechanical system is awesome. And that's just mechanical. You have an electrical system. Your electrical system is so cool. Every cell in your body, 3 to 10 trillion cells, every cell in your body is a little electrical generator to produce the voltage that your brain needs to send down your nerves so that you can do things like this. Or smile. Or frown. Or whatever. All of that is being controlled by your brain. You have neurons. If you want to study something cool, look at how neurons transmit electricity. They're like little switches that can turn on and off faster than you can even blink your eye. And they are channeling electricity in just the right ways. You want to, see what happens when electricity goes wrong in your body? Just look at a Parkinson's patient. A lot of times they have tremors, right? Or they can't swallow right because the electricity, the electrical signals in that person's brain have gone off the rails, and that control is being lost, right? So if you're sitting here and you don't have Parkinson's disease, be thankful that your electrical system is firing with no issues, and it's awesome. Your heartbeat is being controlled by electrical signals right now. You're not thinking about it. Elijah's not sitting there thinking like, okay, love, dove, love, dove, love, dove. I'm getting that from I think it was a Richard Simmons video from back when I was like 12 about the heartbeat, right? Some of y'all, am I dating myself by saying that? Richard Simmons? I don't know. Okay, anyway, it's like love a dove, a love a dove. Okay, so yeah, Elijah's not telling his heart to beat, it's just beating all the time. Electrical signals, pulsing, in perfect synchronization too. When somebody has heart arrhythmia, that's because their electrical signal to their heart has become out of whack and it's not firing properly. So if your heart is beating properly, you can thank your electrical system. Don't thank your electrical system, thank the creator that made your electrical system. Man, I could go on these for a lot. So I want to talk about bladder control, right? Whatever you ate or drank, we'll talk about this with plumbing here in a second, is working its way through you right now. And some of y'all might be like, I gotta go to the bathroom, right? Well, thank goodness for your electrical system that helps you automatically control that bladder. Because otherwise, it would be an uncontrolled MEP system. And we'd have more messes than coffee stains to clean up off the carpet in here, right? So, this system also, to some extent, has the ability to self-repair. It grows with you and operates 24/7, 365, for 75 years or more. Plumbing. This one's kind of cool. So right now, hey Leah, I'm getting an automated signal from my plumbing system right now that tells me I need to take in more water. Can you bring me that water bottle, please? But your plumbing system has automatic signaling that tells you when you're thirsty or when you're hungry. It also tells you when you need to go to the bathroom, and it helps you control those automatically. When you take in these things, unfortunately, sometimes the water or the food that you drink or eat might have toxins in it. Your plumbing system has the ability to neutralize and take care of those toxins automatically with your digestive system. Protects you from diseases. It helps absorb nutrients out of what you take in and distribute it in conjunction with your mechanical system out to all of the cells in your body so that they can stay alive. It controls the excretion and auto signals. Again, this one grows with you. It has the ability to self-repair and operates 24/7, 365 for 75 years or more. Amazing. You have a highly sophisticated sensor and monitoring system. Okay, so the Edge had 28,000 sensors all over the building. Your eyes have 240 million light sensors in the back of them, in your retina, that are taking in the light information right now that is hitting the backs of your eyes, translating that light energy into an electrical signal that your brain then interprets as vision. 240 million sensor cells. Your ears have 10 million little funky shaped hairs that vibrate according to the frequency of the air moving around you, the compression waves. My vocal cords are vibrating the air in a certain way in the language of English. Your ears are picking that up and translating that into an electrical signal that your brain then interprets as English. Mind-blowing, right? This stuff is all boils down to chemical control. Highly controlled chemical processes run your senses. And the control system is ultimately your brain. So, here's a summary of you. You have a location, but it's moving all the time. You're mobile, right? You were at your house or somewhere else until about an hour or two ago. Depending on where you are in life, you're either 15 inches long or 84 inches long, or, like if you're Luke, you're at the upper end of that spectrum. Your cost, though, you are priceless. There's no amount of money that anybody could pay for you. Your design documents, your DNA, that's that little computer animation that you saw being replicated. That DNA and this is an estimate based on the best scientific data that we have now, it's equivalent to roughly 550 million pages of information. 550 million pages of information in every single cell of your body, being copied millions of times per second without error. Without error. You were completed on your birthday. Now the question comes up, who is your owner, your architect, your engineer, and your builder? So that concludes the study of the human body. Now, after going through all that, the answers to those questions, I think, are very intuitive and very obvious. But let's just do one more summary, right? The edge versus the human body. Building versus human. Highly sophisticated building, but even more sophisticated human body. I mean, the edge cannot hold a candle to you and what's going on inside of you right now. The edge is unconscious. You are conscious. In other words, if you wanted to, it wouldn't be easy, but you could literally disassemble the edge building. You could take it all the way down, every building block, you could spread it all out over the ground, and you could put it all back together, and it would work. You cannot do that with you. You have something different about you, where if you took the pieces of you apart and put them back together, you would not be alive anymore. You are conscious. There is a part of you that lives on beyond your parts and pieces. The edge does not grow. You do grow and adapt. The edge has no agency, right? Can't make any judgments about moral choices or anything. You can. It's like Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, He has made everything beautiful in His time. He has also put eternity in the hearts of men. You have that eternity inside of you, that agency. And the edge was designed and built for a purpose by something higher than itself. So were you. Who designed and built you? And this is the question I pose to my students. I just kind of let this sink in, because I don't know what they believe. And quite frankly, I know what a lot of y'all believe, but I don't know what everybody believes in here. And so the question remains, what do you think about who designed and built you? Now, when you walk into a Coke factory, if you were to do that, and you saw that machinery, or if you walked into the edge and you were to look up in this huge 15-story atrium and see all these windows with these solar panels and people walking around on their phones telling the coffee makers what to make them and stuff like that, you would automatically and intuitively come to the conclusion that that building was made by a natural process over millions of years. Why are you laughing? I mean, come on. Volcanic eruption. Was in a really sandy area, so it was able to make this glass all at once. And it stood up in these sheets, right? In this nice, transparent form. And it at the same time, not only was there sand around, but there was like iron ore that was being made by the volcanic eruption, but also smelted at the same time and stretched out into these big steel beams that formed the skeleton for this building. It just makes perfect sense, right? Yeah, I mean, and over time, like at least this would happen at least once, right? And these copper wires just got stretched out into all these, long strings and ran from things like light switches to lights and, right? Isn't that the intuitive conclusion? No. You would automatically assume, you do it every day, you automatically assume that it was designed and built by a creator. And so my question is, why wouldn't we assume the same of these things? Why wouldn't we assume the same thing of the DNA replication process and the human body? Who has Romans 1:18 through 21? Or I think that was split up into two. Go ahead, Jackson.
For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Because that which is known about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them.
Who had the next two? You got a loud voice, Tyler. Go ahead.
For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. For even though they knew God, they did not honor him as God,
Okay, so Scripture tells us that in order to ignore that automatic and intuitive conclusion of the design and built nature of not just the world around you, but you yourself, that heart has to be darkened. It becomes a fool, in which case it's going to use goofy logic and goofy arguments and things that really don't add up and make sense and things that really don't have any evidence for them in order to come to the conclusion that things are, evolved over millions of years. So we spent, again, most of our time here talking about the teleological arguments. In other words, when you study the world around you, you study buildings, you see that there's all of this, sophisticated systems involved in them, and you automatically, when you walk in, know that there is a designer and a builder. That designer and builder is God. And the same is true for your human body. Now, for more fun, if you wanted to go into the moral argument and the New Testament reliability, I went ahead and just threw this stuff up here. I won't read it all, but there it is. If you really want to dig more in the moral argument, C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity has a great bit on this. And there's way more sources than just that, but Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis, that was the thing that came to my mind when I was putting together this presentation. And then the New Testament reliability, this isn't even an exhaustive list. But you can trust the New Testament for all of these reasons and more. Everything from archaeological evidence to extra-biblical accounts. So I encourage you to take a look at those things to have a little bit more fun with this. And so I will end with this. This is a picture. What's this picture of right here on the left? Mount Rushmore. What's this a picture of? Anybody know? Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon was made by the natural cause of erosion. And so was Mount Rushmore. Right? No, you intuitively know that is designed and made by somebody. Natural processes don't do that. So with that, I will say thank you, and I guess maybe, 5 or 10 minutes of Q&A if there is any. You're just like one of my students. This was an optional class, John. No, in fact, that's one thing that I say, hey, before that optional day, I say, look, I'm telling you as plain as I can, there is no extra credit for showing up, there's no pop quiz, there's no attendance grade, there's no grade associated anything in any way with this optional class. I have to really clarify that. Pam.
So what kind of reaction do you get from people that come to hear your
Oh, this is great. So, well, first I'll say about 10 to 20% of my class will show up. And then on top of that, usually what happens, so I'll have a Q&A at the end, and that's where a lot of, a little bit of back and forth happens. I'll say this, for those of y'all who know me and have heard my testimony before, part of my testimony is I used to be Catholic. And usually there's a couple Catholics, at least in the audience, and they will ask me, they'll kind of pick up on the idea that I said I was Catholic, and now I'm not. So that kind of draws out questions like, so are you still Catholic? Are you not? And then the big question is, why are you not? And then I'll usually answer that one shortly and say, hey, come to my office and I'm happy to have that conversation with you. And this has stirred up conversation with Catholics, but also non-Catholics, people from different backgrounds as well. And that's one of my favorite things about it is that I get that, continued interaction with them afterwards. Thanks for asking that question. John, did I see your hand up?
I have the same question.
Same one? Okay. All right, thanks, y'all. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great evening. Gig 'em.